My real name is Abolghasem Mesbahi. I was a security of the Ayatollah Khomeini when he was coming back to Iran. I was working in the whole Europe. Then we need the secret diplomacy for Western Europe. And they have chosen me to do that. And in that time, I was coordinator, yes. From 1981, the strategy of Iran to answer to the Western country, it was just governmental terrorism. I had a lot of meeting and a lot of time to spend in them. That is Hotel Hilton. In Hotel Hilton, we were very used to use some balcony in front of the lake and sit with, for example, the gentleman from United States from the White House or from Champs-Élysées to sit there to negotiate.
And Geneva was a good meeting place?
Let's say Geneva was, or probably we can say is, the best place in the world. And for example, this cafe, we had somebody was working there as our intelligence man.
Abolghasem Mesbahi was once number 3 in the Iranian Secret Service, but he has been on the run since he fell from grace in Tehran. Today he hides somewhere in Europe and fears for his life.
I am looking carefully about my security and my life because the terrorists of the Ayatollah Khamenei are everywhere. And if they find the right time in the right place, definitely they will act against me.
Abolghasem Mesbahi was born in Tehran in 1958. His father was a merchant in the bazaar, a traditionalist and faithful follower of the mullahs who fought to establish a religious state. Mesbahi was raised a strict Muslim. It was his father's wish that he become not a merchant but a mullah, a religious leader. For that, his father sent him to the sacred city of Qom, where most Iranian clerics are educated. The Ayatollah Khomeini studied at one of its many religious schools.
I finished my theology courses when I was 18 years old, and let's say you call it Hujjatul Islam. I became Hujjatul Islam. But in the mean, parallelly, I had always my normal study too.
And you were a faithful follower of Khomeini?
From 15 years old, I was very close to his mentality, to his group. I was always present in the meetings.
Toward the end of January 1979, the revolutionary leader Ayatollah Khomeini leaves his exile in Paris.
I found it necessary to thank the French government for providing security measures and freedom of expression for me.
February 1st, 1979. Ayatollah Khomeini arrives in Tehran after a 14-year exile. 1 million people gather for his triumphant return. The Islamic Revolution turns into a storm which will ultimately depose the hated tyrant Shah Reza Pahlavi. Liberals and leftists support the revolution. They dream of democracy and freedom, a dream that rapidly dissolves. liberals and leftists are driven underground. The revolutionary leader Khomeini does not tolerate compromise. He declares Iran a religious state with no room for liberals and leftists. All the power goes to the clerics. They control the armed forces, the secret service, the judiciary, and the media.
I was just 20 years old, and I was the chief of the Jamshidiyya Kazem with 800 prisoners and more than 80 generals.
How is it possible that you, as a 20-year-old, were given such an important post?
Let's say in this way, that's the people who were trusted people to the center of the revolution guide were not a lot.
Paris, August 1979. Abolghasem Mesbahi rises through the ranks. Though lacking diplomatic experience, he is appointed number 2 at Iran's Paris embassy, which was their most important foreign embassy at the time. His job was to develop an agent network for the Iranian Secret Service.
One of the most important of my job was the logistics. That means, for example, to contact in that time to some key people for example, illegal weapon market, or some spare parts, American spare parts, military machinery that in Iran they needed. Okay, then all these matters was in the cover of the intelligence activity. I had my diplomatic passport, but I didn't present myself. Then for France, I was just a student. And they knew about my activity.
Abolghasem Mesbahi was arrested and taken to a military base where he was questioned for 5 days. The French accused him of espionage and of planning terror attacks on Iranian exiles.
They brought me to the Charles de Gaulle, and then from Charles de Gaulle, yeah, they put me in the Air France, and they sent me to Tehran. without any passport, any paper, anything. And I said to the chief police, listen, in the next month I will back to France, and please don't forget put the red carpet for me. And it's happened, really.
Geneva, 2 weeks later. Agent Abolghasem Mesbahi chooses peaceful Geneva as his new operations base. Being kicked out of France doesn't hurt him. On the contrary, he receives a raise. He is appointed as Secret Service Chief for all of Europe, not just France. Agent Mesbahi employs the same cover as before. He poses as a student.
I was the student of the Professor Jean Ziegler in the Des Hautes Études in Geneva for my doctorate.
We show Professor Jean Ziegler some snapshots of young Abolghasem Mesbahi. Does he remember him?
Yes, the face seems familiar.
What was the title of your dissertation?
The consequences of the Americans' embargo against developing countries.
This is a subject I often assigned.
What name did you use at university?
Abolghasem Mesbahi.
Your real name?
Do I know this person? Yes, I know him. What happened with the dissertation? I would need to check the university computer files. But I don't have a personal relationship with him.
He was in charge of the Iranian Secret Service in Europe. In the meantime, he has changed sides and is revealing what he knows about Iran.
And he survived?
So far. End of September 1985, Agent Mesbahi is recalled to Tehran.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have just landed at Imam Khomeini International Airport. Welcome to Tehran with the local time.
The Revolutionary Council decides to form a special commission to completely reorganize the intelligence service. Abolghasem Mesbahi becomes an important member. His experience as an agent in Europe has made him an expert.
In 1985, the ministry was established, was active as a Ministry of Information and Intelligence. They call it VEVAC, the وزارت اطلاعات و امنیت. Then I was a member of the group who were working for the agenda of this ministry.
Following an attack by Iraqi forces on September 22, 1980, Iran goes to war, a war that will last 8 years. The biggest weapons deployment since World War II, causing more than 500,000 casualties. The Mullah regime is greatly tested. The leftists and reformers are disappointed by the revolution and demand democracy and more freedom. The radicals want the revolution to go farther. Warning that the country cannot tolerate internal tension, Khomeini demands unconditional obedience. Ensuring this will be the new Secret Service's job.
From the beginning, it was a 2 point of views. For example, the one point of view was to have a strong intelligence service for the intelligence information to supporting the government.
On the other hand, the Pasdaran, the elite troop of Revolutionary Guards, needs a Secret Service task force that can attack opposition members even abroad. The Pasdaran ultimately win.
We call it the aggressive strategy they had. To have, for example, the operation group, terrorist activity.
Hashemi Rafsanjani, the then President of Parliament and Supreme Leader of the Armed Forces. Rafsanjani supported a more moderate position. He opposed attacks abroad and tried to undermine Pasdaran operations. Summer 1987. Agent Mesbahi is back in Geneva for a highly secret mission. This time in the service of Hashemi Rafsanjani. He is to contact European governments and meet with American intermediaries.
My main activity, the secret diplomacy activity, was to negotiate about the Western hostages in Lebanon.
Jean-Paul Kaufmann et l'équipe d'Antenne 2 n'ont toujours pas été libérés.
There are more than 30 hostages in Lebanon, among them 2 German engineers and several French journalists.
The Iranian policy was show that all of the hostage takers are Lebanese, but the reality wasn't completely different. The reality was Iran was a hostage taker. Iran was making all kinds of the decision for the hostages, and really was everything under the hand of the Iran. For example, they were asking a big ship of the weapons against one hostage. This was a condition of Mr. Rafsanjani.
Mesbahi says he negotiated for Rafsanjani.
It's quite possible. I noticed in these kinds of negotiations I pay attention to nuance. I noticed that we could rely on him, that he knew what he was talking about. He had the power to make decisions. Without a direct mandate, without the government's trust, this would not have been possible. He obviously had direct access to Rafsanjani.
I met him one time in Richmond Hotel, the other time in another hotel that I don't remember exactly, and one time in private in the big bar in front of the lake of Geneva.
That's how it was. I met with the delegates in Switzerland, in Geneva, and I met with them in Paris. I'll tell you something. I even met with them during the Bayreuth Festival. I thought that rather clever. Since I drove to the festival every year, I arranged a meeting in a small town near Bayreuth.
I was feeling somehow very happy to just stand and sit in front of the Foreign Affairs Minister of France and drive the negotiation to the point that it was from the beginning in my mind, and he was coming with me, and this is this is a good feeling.
In Germany, Agent Mesbahi meets the two top SPD politicians, Hans-Jürgen Vogel and Hans-Jürgen Wisniewski. In France, he negotiated, among others, with Jacques Chirac, who was then mayor of Paris.
We were called it as a diplomacy of the Friday prayer. That means I was telling to them, okay, if you want to believe me, in next prayer, the Friday prayer, Mr. Rafsanjani is going to tell these sentences. And this means I am right person and so. And then they were waiting for that Friday, and he was, of course, telling these sentences. Then we were calling it the Friday prayer diplomacy.
End of November 1988, Mesbahi meets with ex-President Jimmy Carter in the U.S.
He has given to me a letter, official letter by his signature, to deliver this letter to Ayatollah Khamenei.
Mesbahi leaves immediately for Iran. He has to report to his superiors and deliver Carter's letter to Khomeini. He looks forward to seeing his family again, but a big surprise awaits him in Tehran.
I went my home, and from the first floor, I heard somebody's calling me. I went downstairs, and he said, "You are arrested because of the financial force." Okay, then go ahead. Immediately they took me, but later on I find out, because immediately they took me and they put me in one Mercedes. They closed my eyes, and they brought me to the Tawhid prison.
Abolghasem Mesbahi is accused of treason. He expects the worst. This Vivek agent knows all too well how people are tortured in Iranian prisons.
I was 4 months in the small jail, and real bad time, and then a lot of investigation, 1,270 pages investigation, 12 hours and a half video investigation in that time.
The questions focus on only one topic: his contacts in Geneva. He grows afraid. His interrogators know about his Geneva police connections. Mesbahi goes over his life in Geneva. Who betrayed him? His mind keeps going back to Geneva. Is his Geneva police contact a double agent? He can't believe it. Mesbahi curses the day it all began. It was fall 1986. One day, 2 policemen appear in the lobby of his hotel.
They showed that they are from police office, and then they said, we want to speak with you, please come with us.
They take him downtown. He is interrogated half the night. Leon Jobet, the interrogating officer, heads the Groupe de Renseignement. He works for the Bundespolizei, the Swiss intelligence service.
Mr. Jobet was asking me the questions, and then I was very open with him without any problem. Who are you? You know, I said, you know, who am I? What are you doing here? I am now, as you see, I am a student.
Jobet accuses Mesbahi of espionage and terrorism. He threatens him with deportation. Agent Mesbahi listens unperturbed. Then he makes a daring proposal: collaboration.
What I can do for this a lot. We can sit together, speak together, and then work together. You can give me a chance to continue my job.
Leon Jobet leaves the room and calls his boss in Bern.
And then when he was back to the room, and he said, okay, generally we agree. You stay in contact with us. And even he has given to me a code name as Javier.
Jobe and Mesbahi come to an agreement. Mesbahi will stay in Switzerland, pass on information about his fellow agents, and promises to keep Geneva free of terrorist attacks.
He was really professional. In my analysis, he was one of the best intelligent men I've ever seen. You know, I met a lot in my life.
Ex-agent Mesbahi leads us to one of the meeting places and tells us about his contact, Léon Jobe. It sounds like pages from a cheap espionage thriller.
We had met very often. We were speaking about the Iranians here and Iranian politics, Iranian activities. You know, 2-3 times we were out together with the family.
The concierge at this hotel served as contact for the two agents and arranged the secret meetings.
First of all, this was the Mr. Jobe's idea to use the gentleman who was working here, and they knew each other, and he has given to me a code name, and he knew that.
In his cell, Mesbahi begins to panic. If his interrogators discover the contents of his conversations with Léon Jobe, they'll simply line him up against the wall and shoot him as a traitor. Four months after his arrest, Abolghasem Mesbahi is suddenly released from prison. Though still in shock, he breathes easier. He is sentenced to 1 year under house arrest and will not have to appear in court. The indictment for high treason is dropped. 1 year later,
they told me, okay, then if you like, you can go to contact, for example, some intelligence people that you know them, and now they are in the private sector.
Slowly, Abolghasem Mesbahi returns to normal life. He becomes an entrepreneur and takes over a number of stalls in the country's major bazaars. He makes a fortune creating several electronics and machine import businesses. But the VEVAC Secret Service is involved in whatever Mesbahi does.
Always the member of the VEVAC officially, for example, were working in my office. For example, VEVAC was asking me, okay, this gentleman must be your secretary, and I had no choice. I had to hire him because to control me.
Everything seems to be going well when reality suddenly catches up with him again. His life takes a dramatic turn.
Finally, at the late of the 1995, my friend Said Emami came to me and he said, listen, the regime wants to eliminate 120 people, and your name is one of the top of this list. Just leave the country.
Mesbahi quickly flees Tehran. He hides in the mountains from where, with the help of his friends, he prepares his escape abroad. Three weeks later, Mesbahi leaves his mountain hideout and drives towards Isfahan, 350 kilometers southeast of Tehran. Abolghasem Mesbahi awaits his contact in vain. He spends the night in a hotel. The smallest sound panics him. Has his contact betrayed him? Has his plan been discovered? He's terrified of being arrested. He's convinced that this time he won't escape torture.
First of all, one of the pressure they use is crying the kids between midnight and 3 o'clock in the morning. They call it zero band. That means the torture room. Yes, when they want they ask the question, they don't believe that the question is right, they bring the people to the, as I said, zero band, that in the torture room, and they by cable, by the big cable, they treat them very badly, and they cry very, very badly, very bad.
The following morning, Abolghasem Mesbahi looks for a new contact to help him escape. He's in luck. A spice merchant is willing to take him out of the city. Next stop, the desert city Yazd, capital of Zoroastrianism. Mesbahi wants to hide out here for a few days until he can find someone to smuggle him into Baluchistan. Baluchistan province is ideal for an escape abroad. It is situated on the border with Pakistan and is not merely an El Dorado for smugglers, but also a center of political opposition. The trek continues. Mesbahi reaches Baluchistan, the untamed province in the southeast corner of Iran. They are a few kilometers from the border. Mesbahi is nervous because the border with Pakistan is closely guarded.
I had no ID and no passport because they took all of them from me. My friend was managing to the people who were working there. They leave that place, and then I had to walk away from this way to the Pakistan border. It was afternoon. It was afternoon, around 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Finally in Pakistan, his helper, a smuggler, takes him to the nearest bus stop. From here on, he is on his own. Mesbahi breathes a sigh of relief, convinced that the worst is over. He buys some clothes from a local inhabitant. He doesn't want to draw attention, as he still has no papers. Mesbahi continues his journey dressed as a Pakistani trader. The trip takes him through the Boroumand Mountains on a dangerous road with more than 20 tunnels. After the Boroumand Mountains, the road continues through the Kotjij Desert. In Lakana, the nearest somewhat large town, he plans to call Leon Jobe, his friend in the Geneva police.
And I called Jobe. I said, listen, I am just in Pakistan. I need help. What you can do for me, I am here to cooperate with you. I mean, with your department. Not just for as an assignment. I want really to cooperate. I am in this position. He said, listen, don't say anything, and then I will find out what I can do for you.
Leon Jobe calls him back the same night. In the meantime, he has spoken to his boss at the National Police Headquarters in Bern.
Later, he called me, and he said, listen, I spoke with my chief, and he said, we have no interest of you. Not at all. And then I asked him, listen, what about your speaking? You know, who am I? Then I am really against the regime now, and this could be a good opportunity. Leon Jobe said, I have the same problem as you have. I can't do anything for you.
Mesbahi decides to continue on to Islamabad, the Pakistani capital.
I contacted several places that I left the country, but it took 6 months. And it was a very, very hard and bad time for me because I had to change every day my place because Iran found out that where I am in Pakistan.
After Islamabad, he tries his luck in Karachi, where he contacts several Western intelligence services. He promises insider information and in exchange demands a new identity. Many are interested, but they hold him off. Mesbahi cannot wait. Vivak killers are close on his heels. He's running out of money and he still doesn't have papers. In great desperation, he asks for help from a man whom, as a VEVAC agent, he originally planned to murder, Abolghasem Mesbahi. Did he say he had changed his political stance?
No, but he knew that I help those who leave Iran, even those who do not share my political opinions. Human rights come before political opinion.
Abolghasem Mesbahi and the revolutionary leader Khomeini worked together to topple the Shah. After the takeover in February '79, he was appointed in turn economy, finance, and finally foreign affairs minister. In January 1980, he became the Islamic Republic of Iran's first president. A year later, in the spring of 1981, he fell out with Khomeini. Since then, he has lived in exile in Paris.
He came to see me twice on Khomeini's orders. He knew I knew about him. He knows VEVAC and a lot about the regime's terrorist activities.
Summer of 1996. The Mykonos trial takes place in Berlin. In the dock, 4 Lebanese and 1 Iranian. On September 17, 1992, they murdered 4 Iranians, including the head of the Democratic Kurdish Party, at the Mykonos restaurant. Prosecution has a hard time. They cannot prove who ordered the attack. Mesbahi decides to appear as a witness. He proposes to bring Mesbahi in from Pakistan. As the former number 3 of the Iranian Secret Service, he knows who was behind the assassination.
The government refused, so the court was unable to act. I requested help from various European governments. Nothing. Finally, though, we managed to get him to Belgium on a false passport.
Mid-October 1996, Mesbahi has nearly achieved his goal. He is on the way to the airport.
Mr. Banisat, I have to thank him now, helped me to leave the Pakistan by some document.
There is only one small problem. It is not Mesbahi's passport. It belongs to someone else.
But the document wasn't really good. For example, in the document, it was the height of the man 182, and in the board, the policeman asked me, "Where is your rest of 180?" and I said, "Listen, this is my last money left, or I am till here. Keep me in the jail, and you lose the money, or keep the money. Let me go. I am finished now." And he said, "Okay, I take your money." Go.
Freedom at last. Abolghasem Mesbahi flies to Brussels. Then he presents himself to the German authorities in order to testify at the Mykonos trial in Berlin.
Here on the Prager Platz in Berlin's Wilmersdorf district, final preparations were made. The 3 assassins approached the Mykonos restaurant. The team leader shouted, "You sons of bitches," pulled out his automatic submachine gun and loosed a hail of 26 bullets.
The shots were meant for Sadek Sharfkandi, Secretary General of the Democratic Kurdish Party, 2 of his colleagues, and his translator, Nuri Dekordi. For exiled Iranians living in Berlin and the relatives of the victims, there was no question who was behind the assassinations.
Khomeini murder! Islamic Republic murder!
The persecution of dissenters and the activities of the Iranian regime cannot be swept under the table. I wish that now, 18 years later, I would no longer have to be afraid. But unfortunately, this is not the case.
On August 27, 1996, Mesbahi appears as a witness for the first time. The public is banned from the proceedings. For reasons of security, he appears in the court transcripts as Witness C.
Because, of course, the man was in very grave danger. If the Iranian authorities had gotten hold of him, he would certainly have been eliminated as a traitor.
Mesbahi, alias Witness C, is the key witness in the Mykonos court proceedings. His deciding statements are:
the assassination order came from the spiritual leader and successor to Khomeini, Ali Khamenei. The planning and execution of the attack was led by the Vivek minister and Secret Service chief Ali Falayan.
Mesbahi even knows the go-ahead code for the Mykonos assassination, Bozarg Alavi, which means the big chief. The Iranian embassy in Bonn was suspected of participating in the Mykonos attack. According to Witness C, it was from here that the code was passed on to the assassins. The police have records of the code phrase from their phone surveillance.
The state prosecutor checked all his statements, of course. He was able to give detailed, extremely precise information, including about his residence in Switzerland. His statements proved unassailable.
On September 14, 1997, the court pronounced judgment. The Iranian government and the spiritual leader Ali Khamenei were found guilty of ordering the Mykonos restaurant massacre.
Das Urteil war insofern sensationell, dass
the verdict was sensational in that, for the first time, an acting leader of a state with strong economic ties to Germany was accused of ordering an assassination. That never happened before, and to my knowledge, it never happened again.
Meines Wissens auch seitdem nicht.
After the Mykonos trial, Witness C is handed over to the police and secret services of several countries, including Switzerland. As in Germany, he freely reveals Iranian state-sanctioned terrorist activities in Europe. He makes particularly spectacular revelations about Geneva. On the road with Witness C, alias Mesbahi. With Geneva as his base, the Vivek officer coordinated Iranian Secret Service special operations in Europe. Mesbahi leads us down a dirt road behind the Geneva Cointrin airport. He shows us a dead letterbox, a hiding place used for passing secret messages. 2 meters above ground, hidden behind a creeper vine, is a hole in a tree.
He's here.
You're sure?
This is completely covered because it looks nobody use it anymore.
Agents left particularly sensitive information here, such as arranging secret meetings with rocket specialists.
The special committee. They were looking to be ready for the different kind of the reaction to the Americans. One of them was to shoot down the American airlines, civil airlines. And here, because there is no security at that time, following our information, it wasn't any kind of the security around the airport. One of the examples that he mentioned very openly, that was Stinger.
With this rocket, they wanted to bring down an American passenger plane. The Stinger, also known as the Personal Portable Anti-Aircraft Missile, weighs less than 20 kilos and can be handled by one man.
We were looking to see who is able to sell it. And the Brazilian, finally, they said we are able to do that.
During the period that Mesbahi was an active Vivek agent, the Iranian intelligence service used Geneva as command center. From here, they sent out hit teams and terror commandos. London, December 79, an Iranian politician in exile is the victim of a bomb attack. Vienna, July 89, a murder attempt on the Kurdish leader Abdul Rahman Ghassemlou. Paris, August 91, Vevak agents murder former Iranian Prime Minister Shapur Bakhtiar. Does anyone know how many people were liquidated?
We have a list with close to 500 murder victims. In Europe, the USA, and the Near East, some in Iran. There might be more.
There are assassination attempts in Geneva as well, despite the secret non-aggression agreement. August 10th, 1987, Ahmad Moradi and his wife Sarah stroll along the lake. Ahmad used to be a pilot with the Iranian Air Force. In the middle of the Iraq-Iran war, he deserted and flew his jet, a brand new F-14, to Baghdad. A month later, he and his wife were given political asylum in Geneva. It is shortly before 9 p.m. Ahmad and his wife are on their way home. Two men follow them. Suddenly, shots ring out. Ahmad Moradi collapses, hit by 5 bullets, 3 to the head. The two assassins escape toward the lake and disappear in the dark of the night. Despite precise descriptions by several eyewitnesses, they are never apprehended. The Vevak officer Mesbahi is against the assassination attempt in Geneva, as it contravenes the non-aggression agreement with the police. But this time, he does not get his way with Tehran. Where did the weapons come from?
For pilot, and they brought it from Italy.
Was this assassination ordered by Iran?
Yeah, the chief of the operation is clear who is, and then the group of the even I know one of the member. I know one of the member of the operation who was in Iran. We had a familiar relationship with him.
During one of the interviews with Swiss National Police officials, ex-agent Mesbahi admitted, "I warned the Geneva police about the assassination and gave names. I had found those names for Jobe."
Officers from the anti-terrorist task force warned me about 10 days before the attempt on the pilot's life. They told me that I was on a hit list, so I had to disappear for a few days.
Feridun Assam Sangane has lived in Geneva for 30 years. He hates the Mullah regime.
My great-grandfather was Prime Minister of Persia, and my grandfather Governor of Western Iran.
Geneva has a particularly large Iranian community, those persecuted during the Shah's regime and those exiled by the Mullah government. The pilot's assassination has shaken them all. Many are scared. Azam Zangane, who used to own a newsstand on Geneva's Rue de Lausanne, was one of the few not to be intimidated, despite the death threats. From his kiosk, a meeting place for opponents to the regime, he distributed flyers denouncing torture and the execution of Iranian opposition members.
Bon, vu la circonstance de menace qui me...
The anti-terror police advised me to acquire a gun because of the threat posed by the Iranian government. I kept it here so I could defend myself.
The village of Tane, barely 15 minutes from Geneva by car. April 24th, 1990. One more opponent to the Iranian regime is assassinated. The victim, the well-known politician in exile, Kazem Rajavi. The police secure the crime zone minutes after Kazem Rajavi's assassination. They find 11 cartridges next to his car. Czechoslovakian bullets were fired from a Uzi FN 9mm submachine gun. And as with the pilot's murder, the assassins leave their signature mark: a baseball cap.
He was an Iranian leftist intellectual, part of the People's Mujahideen movement. He was a professor at the University of Geneva. He was opposed to the Shah's dictatorial monarchy and had to leave Iran. He received asylum in Switzerland. Later, Khomeini made him UN delegate in Geneva. When Khomeini began eliminating his political adversaries, Kazem Rajavi decided to stop working for the regime.
From Geneva, Kazem Rajavi fights a veritable crusade against the regime. Thousands of political enemies are executed in Iran, often after horrible torture. He mobilizes the world press and speaks before the UN and the European Parliament. Such political success turns him into the mullah's mortal enemy. Kazem Rajavi is buried in Iraq, where his brother Masoud and the People's Mujahideen live in exile. His family has been highly critical of Iran's political regime since the Shah and has paid a very high price. His father was blinded by the Shah's political police, and a sister was condemned to death and hanged under Khomeini. Les Pyramides, a bar in Geneva. Mustafa Soleiman, an Islamic scholar and former member of Egypt's Muslim Brotherhood, spends much of his time here. From 1984 to 1989, he served as private secretary to the Consul General of Iran. He witnessed terrorist activities. He lost his job because he refused to participate in an assassination.
There were 4 of us in the consulate, not counting the consul: the secretary, the vice consul, the chauffeur, and myself.
Who took care of the diplomatic pouches?
I did. I went to the airport with the chauffeur. There were normally 2 suitcases, one for the consul and consular affairs, and one with things I ordered, like books and newspapers. I taught Arabic once a week to all the members of the consulate and the embassy. 1 lesson per week.
During our research, we came across a report on terrorist activities by Iranian diplomats in Geneva. The author was a member of the Iranian UN delegation. According to this insider report, the Iranian General Consul was directly involved in the preparations for the assassination in Geneva.
The consul was one of several people organizing the hit. There were others.
The Consul General had recruited young people, particularly North Africans.
Some were sent to Tehran, where they were trained at special camps to perform assassinations in Europe, particularly in France. Of course. Why? To work for Iran, either politically or in propaganda, militarily or as agents. He recruited people and paid them to work for the Iranian government.
Concerning the Princess Shanbeh Chateau Geneva residence of the Iranian UN delegation, it is said,
a part of the building was reserved for members of Hezbollah and other elements who executed terrorist attacks for the Secret Service. Hand grenades and other weapons were transported in diplomatic pouches. The explosives were hidden in tins of caviar. No, I'm sorry. I won't talk about this.
Is it too dangerous?
It's better not to talk about it. No, it's not a good idea.
Honestly, is it too dangerous for you?
Yes. But I'm not against the Iranian Revolution in principle. And I say that openly. Arab countries badly need revolution.
The judge Roland Chatelain conducts the Kazem Rajavi murder case. In just 4 weeks, he constructs an airtight chain of events. The police find the assassin's car. It was rented by an Iranian named Yadollah Samadi. The rest is routine. The trail leads from the car right to the assassin's hotel. April 10th, 1990. 4 members of the commando land in Geneva on an Iran air flight. A week later, 2 more accomplices arrive. Apparently, the assassins know they have nothing to fear from the Geneva police. They don't even try to cover their tracks. In the 10 days leading up to Rajavi's murder, the commando leader is caught 12 times by speed cameras on the road between Geneva and the town of Tanay, where Rajavi lives. Police inactivity is surprising because Abolghasem Mesbahi, as well as a member of the Iranian UN delegation, had revealed the Rajavi assassination plot to the Geneva police. We asked the police for a statement. No comment.
Disons que les autorités, de toute évidence, savaient qu'il y avait des
For sure, the officials knew about the plot against Kazem Rajavi.
À l'encontre de Kazem. Ça, de toute façon, ça, c'est vrai qu'elle le savait. Donc,
the question is, did they do everything in their power to protect his life?
Pour, disons, préserver sa vie?
Obviously not.
Manifestement, non.
He felt threatened. He asked me to intervene with Lebas, who was then head of the Department of Justice in the Canton of Vaud. He wanted me to ask him for police protection, which I did. I must say that Kazem was murdered in his car without having had the slightest protection.
Years pass. The trail grows cold. Chatelain cannot close the case. He knows what happened. He knows the assassins' names, but he lacks one important answer in order to take the case to court. Who was in charge? Who shot the fatal shots?
The judge was so discouraged, he finally talked about closing the case. He said, "I have done everything in my power. What else can I do?"
January 97. The case suddenly moves. Chatelain can now interrogate the Iranian deserter, Abolghasem Mesbahi. Mesbahi knows who ordered the hit: Parliament President Rafsanjani and Vivek Minister Falahian. And he even knows the assassins' names, Yadollah Samadi and Ali Kamali. Then Witness C makes a sensational revelation. There is a mole at work in the Geneva police force. A woman who spied on Kazem Rajavi for the Iranian government. Mesbahi doesn't hesitate in identifying her. She is Geneva Police Inspector FS. What do you know about the mole's activities?
I know a lot because I was, in that time, I was in Iran. I was looking to her file.
What information did she pass on concerning Kazem Rajavi?
The complete map of the house, the security around the house, this kind, and photo. I remember now. She gave a photo that Mr. Rajavi was making the tea, Mr. Kazem Rajavi. And she was so close to the kitchen that she could make this photo. And I saw personally this photo.
Did Iran pay for this information?
Definitely, definitely, definitely.
February 4th, 1997. Federal prosecutor Carla Del Ponte instigates a judicial inquiry on espionage. From this moment on, Geneva policewoman FS is watched around the clock. The federal prosecutor also specifies the case's absolute confidentiality. Neither the Geneva police nor the Geneva authorities are to be informed. Surveillance brings surprising results. FS is married to an Iranian political fugitive who strangely is a friend of the Iranian ambassador. Phone surveillance reveals that policewoman FS knows the ambassador as well and speaks to him using the familiar term "du." Someone must have warned police officer FS. She resigns and disappears to Iran with her husband. End of June, 3 months later, surprisingly, they arrive back in Geneva. FS and her husband are arrested, but are freed 2 days later. The court refuses to indict them. FS starts working for the police again and is given a raise.
I heard that the police rehired her, but that she ultimately left and now works elsewhere.
Does her rehiring surprise you?
To be honest, yes. But I have to admit that she was cleared of everything. There was no trial. She was set free, and obviously prosecution was suspended.
We have repeatedly asked Geneva policewoman FS and her Iranian husband for a statement, but have been continuously turned away. They no longer live in Geneva. We find them in a small town in the canton of Vaud. FS left the Geneva police force with honors and began working with the UN, who sent her to the Ukraine as police advisor. Back with Abolghasem Mesbahi in Geneva. As a VEVAC agent, he often stayed at this hotel, which is only 200 meters from the Iranian Intelligence Services Bank. Even his favorite currency exchange office could be seen from his hotel room.
Sometimes in the account was more than 200 million. To buy for example, illegal weapons, to pay to the top-ranking people who cooperate with us, I mean our sources, to pay to the operation group who were on the scene. They need money for proceeding the operation. As I said, operation, when I am speaking about the operation group, means operation terrorist activity.
The special account was with the Bank of Luxembourg. The Geneva police denied the bank's existence for 10 years. In the meantime, it has moved and changed its name.
And here was a kind of the tableau of the Luxembourg Bank, and these are the rooms who were using by the gentlemen who were in charge of that activity.
VEVAC agent Mesbahi often withdrew great sums of cash from this special account. He'd then cross the bridge over the Rhone and go to the money changer, an old trick for hiding the origins of one's money.
As soon as the exchange and the transaction is done, everything will disappear, and no more paper and document existed in the bureau.
So it was money laundering.
Exactly. This is a question of the hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not a small amount, yeah. But not in one time. Of course, it's in 3-4 years. A lot of part of each part could be some millions.
Then the amounts were huge.
Of course. Otherwise, they don't cooperate with the people if the sum is not important.
Secret agent Mesbahi has a pact of non-interference with Geneva. Which authority did he make it with? He informs the police of assassination plots, and he reveals the $200 million espionage and terrorist activities account. Why did neither police nor the judiciary take action? For months, we tried to get interviews and statements from the responsible authorities. Yet we received nothing but denials. Nobody is willing to assume responsibility. We try one last time. We turn again to Geneva Superior Court prosecutor Daniel Zappelli. Question: why was the judiciary not interested in a $200 million account used for terrorism and espionage? Why wasn't there an inquiry into money laundering? Zappelli keeps mum. He does not respond to our letters or emails. We visit the Geneva police to talk with Leon Jobe, but he's no longer there. In 1997, he was convicted of espionage in another case and fired. Since then, there's no trace of him. We ask for an interview with the Chief of Police, Monica Bonfanti. We ask her if Leon Jobe was in a position to consent to a non-interference pact with the Iranian Secret Service. The Chief of Police refuses to be interviewed and sends the following statement.
Terrorism is a federal crime. Only FEDPOL, the federal police in Bern, can answer on such an issue, never the Geneva police.
We write to FEDPOL. Wrong department. They do not have jurisdiction. The FEDPOL press office states in an email,
at that time, the BUPO, the federal police, worked under the auspices of the federal government.
So we write to the federal prosecutor's press secretary and ask for an interview. This too is refused. But finally, we receive an explanation why neither the police nor the judiciary took action against Iranian terrorist activities.
In such cases, the final decision concerning prosecution lies with the Federal Council.
In other words, it was the Federal Council, the federal government, who called off both the police and the judiciary. It's been 15 years since Abolghasem Mesbahi escaped from Iran. For him, Iran is nothing but a painful memory.
You know, I lost a lot of my friends. I lost my family. I lost my life. It was very, very, very hard for me. Very hard. I have 4 children in Iran. Still, they are not allowed to contact me. And more than this, my mother, old woman, is not allowed to speak with me.
As state witness, Abolghasem Mesbahi was once under police protection in Germany. This protection has now been withdrawn. Today, he lives somewhere in Europe under an assumed name. He lives in fear. He is afraid for his family and afraid for his life.